For 7 long years, Kathy Reyes built PulseLink, not for praise, not for power, but because she believed in building something that mattered. She was there when the company was nothing but 3 desks in a co-working space. She worked 18-hour days, coded until her eyes blurred, fixed bugs at 3 a.m. while the world slept. She missed holidays. She skipped birthdays. She drank cold coffee in fluorescent-lit offices while everyone else was at home with their families. But she never complained, because PulseLink wasn't just a system. It was her legacy, her fingerprint on the future of global logistics. She didn't wear a name tag that said founder. She didn't get the magazine covers. She didn't have a corner office. But she was the architect, the brain, the heart, the hands that held the company together without anyone noticing. And in those 7 years, Kathy became something they didn't expect: irreplaceable. Until the day they tried to replace her. Kathy gave everything to the system, and the system took everything in return. She missed her father's retirement dinner. She wasn't there when her nephew was born. One Christmas, she worked through a power outage alone in the office because PulseLink had gone down and the company needed her. And she showed up every single time. She never asked for a raise, never played politics, never reminded anyone how essential she was, because she thought loyalty was enough. But in the eyes of the board, her silence wasn't strength, it was invisibility. The more she gave, the more they believed she'd always be there. The more reliable she became, the less they thought they needed her. Her greatest mistake wasn't trusting them, it was thinking they saw her. They didn't. They only saw what she built, and even that, they were planning to take. It didn't start with a memo or a confrontation. It started with silence. Meetings were suddenly rescheduled. Calendar invites that used to include her now didn't. No one told her directly, but access to financial projections quietly disappeared. Her admin password expired without warning. At first, Kathy thought it was a glitch, a missed update, a forgotten CC, but the pattern kept repeating. Then came the printer. She walked into the office early, same routine, same hallway, same smell of burnt coffee. But that morning, something was different. A single sheet sat alone on the communal printer. She picked it up without thinking, and there it was, a draft contract, offering her own position to someone else, Connor Green. 2 years out of college, no real experience, but cheaper. She stood there for a full minute, document in hand, heart still, face blank. That was the moment she knew they weren't just replacing her, they were erasing her. It wasn't a private meeting. It wasn't discreet. It was a spectacle. The executive conference room was packed. CTO department heads, even junior staff who had no reason to be there. Kathy didn't know why they were all called in, but she knew it wasn't good. The air was too still, the glances too rehearsed. And then Graham Foster walked in, CEO, golden boy, teeth like a toothpaste commercial and a spine made of dollar signs. He didn't sit. He stood at the head of the table, hands folded like a magician before a trick. And then, with the calm of a man who had practiced this moment in front of a mirror, "Congratulations, Kathy. You're terminated." He slid the severance envelope across the polished glass table, smooth, almost elegant, like presenting an award. And then came the smirk, that arrogant little twist of his mouth that said, "I win." Kathy didn't blink, didn't move, but inside, something split. And from that crack, a different Kathy began to rise. She didn't scream, she didn't throw the envelope, she didn't ask why. Kathy Reyes just looked up, calm, controlled, dead silent. Her eyes scanned the room slowly, deliberately, meeting every gaze that dared look back, and freezing the ones that didn't. And then, with a voice as even as still water, she asked, "So, who's going to explain to the investors when PulseLink goes offline in 9 minutes?" Silence. A thick, choking kind of silence, the kind that tastes like metal and fear. Someone exhaled too loud. A chair squeaked. Graham blinked. Once. Then all hell broke loose. At first, no one moved. Then, chaos. Laptops flew open. Fingers scrambled over keyboards. Someone yelled, "Check the dashboard!" Another bolted out the door. Graham turned white like someone had just unplugged his lungs. The countdown was real. And deep down, they all knew. Only one person had access to a system that complex. Kathy didn't say another word. She didn't gloat. She didn't turn around. She just reached down, picked up her small cardboard box, the one they gave her for personal belongings, and walked out. Calm, silent, unbothered. Behind her, PulseLink was already preparing to go dark. And the people who thought they were watching her fall were actually watching the first empire she ever built begin to collapse, while velocity dynamics descended into full-blown crisis. Kathy Reyes ordered a cappuccino. She didn't pace, she didn't text, she didn't even check her inbox. She just sat at a corner cafe, sunlight spilling through the window, hands wrapped around a warm ceramic mug, as if nothing was falling apart a few miles away. Because she wasn't panicking. She was watching, letting the machine run the script she had written months ago. PulseLink wasn't being destroyed. It was protecting itself. This wasn't sabotage. It was self-defense. She had designed the system to recognize one thing. If Kathy Reyes is removed, the entire network assumes hostile takeover and shuts itself down. Clean, silent, untouchable. They fired her at 9:17 a.m. By 9:26, the servers had locked. The dashboards were blank. The empire began to sink, and the ghost who built it was sipping coffee, unbothered, at exactly 9:30 a.m. PulseLink flatlined. The heartbeat of velocity dynamics gone. Warehouse lights around the world flickered and died. Shipment dashboards froze mid-route. Inventory systems blinked out. Customer portals dead. Tracking links error 504. Contracted clients furious. In less than 5 minutes, tens of thousands of logistics operations went dark. Cargo stranded in Singapore. Perishables left rotting in Dallas. Air freight rerouted without logic in Frankfurt. A silent wave swept across the planet, one system collapsing after another. And with every passing minute, millions of dollars evaporated into nothingness. Investors were calling. Clients were leaving voicemails that sounded like war sirens. Legal teams began drafting breach of contract notices by the dozens. And Graham Foster was pale, sweating, pacing a room he no longer controlled. Because PulseLink wasn't just down, it was gone, and no one could bring it back, except the one person they had just kicked out the door. The first call came from a blocked number. She let it ring. Then another, unknown. Then another, private. She watched the screen light up. Again, again, again. Graham. CTO Mark, Rachel from operations, all calling, all panicking. She didn't answer, not because she was angry, not because she wanted to punish them, but because she wanted them to feel it. The silence, the helplessness, the way she had felt when her name disappeared from meetings, when access was revoked, when she found the contract offering her job to someone cheaper. Now they knew what it was like to be shut out of your own system, to be denied access to something you depended on, to realize too late you fired the only person who could save you. Kathy placed the phone face down, took a sip of her coffee, and let them sweat. The knock came just after sunset. 3 loud, urgent thuds. The kind of knock that doesn't ask permission. The kind of knock that says, "We need you." Kathy didn't rush to answer. She already knew who it was. When she opened the door, she didn't gasp. She didn't gloat. She didn't even look surprised. Rachel stood there, eyes rimmed red from stress. Behind her, Mark, CTO, fidgeted like a schoolboy waiting for detention. Kathy stared at them through the crack in the door. And all she felt wasn't rage. It was pity. Because now they finally understood what it felt like to be locked out, to be powerless, to stand on the wrong side of a door. And this time, Kathy held the handle. They stepped inside slowly like kids being sent to the principal's office. Shoes off, backs hunched, no confidence, just desperation. Kathy didn't sit. She didn't offer tea. She didn't need to. She let the silence work for her. Mark spoke first.
The system, PulseLink, it's offline. Kathy didn't flinch. Catastrophic failure. Full stack lockdown. Clients are screaming. Investors are circling like vultures. Am I warm? Mark swallowed. Rachel looked away. Then Kathy walked across the room, opened her laptop, typed a few lines. Red warnings filled the dashboard. PulseLink isn't broken, she said. It's protecting itself. Silence. And then, you want it back? Kathy asked. Here's the price.
She didn't raise her voice. She didn't blink. 50% intellectual property ownership, reinstatement as CTO, $15 million in damages, and a public statement signed by the board, by Graham, by the investors, acknowledging me as the sole architect of PulseLink. No spin, no PR fluff, just the truth. Rachel's jaw dropped. Mark's eyes widened. And from the doorway, Graham's voice cut through like a blade. That's extortion. Kathy didn't even turn her head. No, Graham, she said. That's justice. She didn't walk in like an employee. She walked in like a force of nature. As the glass doors of Velocity Dynamics slid open, the room went still. Junior developers froze mid-step. Coffee cups hovered in the air. Conversations stopped like someone had hit mute. Kathy Reyes had returned. But this time, she wasn't here to ask for anything. She wasn't here to code. She wasn't here to follow orders. She was here to take her place. Graham was already in the lobby, straightening his tie with trembling fingers. He nodded stiffly. Welcome back, Kathy. She didn't return the smile. She walked past him, calm, silent, and took the elevator straight to the executive floor. The boardroom was waiting. So was the chaos. Kathy opened her laptop, typed just a few keystrokes, no panic, no fuss, and within seconds, PulseLink came back online. Dashboards lit up, warehouses reconnected, clients breathed again. The system was alive because the woman who built it was back in control. The boardroom was quiet, too quiet. Graham sat stiff at the far end of the table, hands clenched, jaw tight. Kathy didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She connected her laptop to the big screen. One tap, one click. A full audit log appeared. Timestamps, usernames, IP addresses. She turned to the room. 6 months ago, PulseLink's internal security flagged a pattern of unauthorized access. Midnight logins. Attempts to copy sensitive architecture. Guess who? She clicked again. Username, G. Foster. Location, Executive IP. A sharp inhale cut through the silence. Someone muttered, "No way." Another gasped, "That's the CEO's credentials." Kathy didn't blink. I wasn't hacked, she said calmly. I was betrayed. Graham's face turned red. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. No words, only guilt, only fear. And across the room, the board was already shifting away from him toward her. The room wasn't just silent, it was charged. Kathy closed her laptop, stood tall, and looked every board member straight in the eye. Section 8 of the shareholder agreement, she began, any executive proven to engage in unauthorized intellectual property access or sabotage is subject to immediate removal. She let that sink in. Then said with calm authority, I propose the termination of Graham Foster as CEO, effective immediately. Graham shot up. You can't do this! But no one backed him. Not this time. One by one, board members began nodding. Then came the vote. Unanimous. All in favor of removal. Security was already waiting outside. When they opened the doors, the entire floor watched in stunned silence. Kathy didn't move. She didn't smirk. She didn't need to. Because justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it walks out wearing a $2,000 suit with security at each shoulder. And that's exactly how Graham left red-faced, humiliated, dragged past the very employees he once ruled over. And the woman he once underestimated was now running the empire he tried to steal. The call came just past noon. Blocked ID. Smooth voice. Too smooth. "Miss Reyes," the man said, "my name is Vincent. I represent Vanguard Strategic Holdings." Kathy didn't recognize the name, but something about his tone made her sit a little straighter. "We're prepared to make you an offer. 9 figures. No negotiations." Her eyes narrowed. "You want to buy PulseLink?" A pause, then a smirk hidden behind words. "We want to own it. License it globally, make it scalable beyond what it is today." Kathy didn't hesitate. "Not for sale." Another pause. The smile vanished. "You might want to reconsider. This isn't a friendly request." Now it was clear. This wasn't business. This was a threat. The call ended. Kathy barely had time to close her laptop when the email came in. No subject, no sender. One line. "Wrong move. Now we escalate." She stared at it. Cold. Deliberate. Seconds later, PulseLink's firewall lit up like fireworks. Port scans, injection attempts, credential stuffing, DDoS floods. This wasn't noise. This was precision. Attack vectors came from 6 continent servers. In Zurich, bounce routes in Singapore, black tunnels through Brazil. The system was being peeled apart, bit by bit, layer by layer. "Jesus," Rachel whispered, eyes glued to the live map of cyber attacks. "This isn't internal sabotage," Kathy said flatly. "It's war." And she was right. This was no longer a company dispute. This was cyber warfare. And Kathy Reyes had just become the front line. Kathy didn't flinch. She didn't panic. She opened a terminal window. Calm, focused, surgical. "Initiate Deep Trace Protocol, Level Omega." The screen lit up. PulseLink's AI went to work. Not just defending tracking, reading patterns, predicting bounce routes, mapping digital fingerprints. Within minutes, the AI flagged something. A server cluster in Zurich. Unlisted, encrypted, leased to a shell company. "Vanguard Strategic Holdings," Kathy whispered. She kept digging. Another hit, internal metadata from a poorly wiped document. It referenced PulseLink directly, and worse, her name. Phase 1, remove creator. Phase 2, force acquisition under distressed valuation. She leaned back, eyes narrowing. "It was never just Graham," she said. "He was leveraged, controlled. Behind the firing, behind the sabotage, behind the cyber war was Vanguard, and their target was never just PulseLink. It was Kathy Reyes. Kathy didn't call a lawyer. She didn't schedule a press conference. She didn't even blink. She moved fast, quiet, precise. Upload evidence package. Triple root encryption. Distribute to FBI Cyber Division, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, TechCrunch, Wired, and Forbes. Click. Send. Done. Every document, every metadata trace, every midnight login Graham made, every internal memo from Vanguard, every contract draft that named her as a target, all of it exposed. She didn't hide in shadows. She didn't play defense anymore. "If they played dirty," Kathy whispered, "I play public." And just like that, the battle was no longer behind closed doors. Now the world would watch. The headlines came in waves. Private equity firm caught in cyberplot. Whistleblower exposes CEO global sabotage. PulseLink creator breaks silence, names names. Wired, Forbes, TechCrunch, CNN, they all ran the story. Within hours, social media exploded. LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit. Everyone was asking the same question. Who tried to erase the woman who built PulseLink? Investors didn't panic. They celebrated. PulseLink stock surged. Because now the world knew the system hadn't failed. The people running it had. And the one who built it, she never left. She was just underestimated, but not anymore. Kathy Reyes didn't just clear her name, she didn't just win back control. She became something bigger, a symbol of integrity, of brilliance. Of what happens when the architect stops waiting to be invited back and kicks the damn door open. PulseLink was never just code, never just a product, never just a platform. It was Kathy's fingerprint, her sleepless nights, her skipped holidays, her quiet sacrifices, and in every line of code, there was a piece of her. "I didn't destroy the system," she said. "I simply turned it off to remind them no one steals what I built with my whole heart." PulseLink came back online. But this time, the world saw it differently. Not as a software, not as a tool, but as something living. Because when the architect pours her soul into the system remembers. Sometimes the most powerful voice in the room is the one that chose silence until silence no longer served justice. Kathy Reyes didn't raise her voice, she raised her value. This story teaches us that loyalty is beautiful, but only when it's mutual. That silence is not weakness, and that protecting what you built is not revenge, it's respecting your worth. If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or replaced, remember this: you don't need permission to reclaim your power. You just need to know who you are. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you feel seen, don't just leave. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this. Stories that fight for justice. Stories that remind you of your worth. And if you've ever been in Kathy's shoes, tell us your story in the comments. You're not alone.